Morning, everybody. Welcome to Riverbend. What I'd like for you to do is stand up and find someone around you and tell them how glad you are that they are here. But if you're not glad that they're here, just say hello to them.
Good morning, Riverbend. Grateful to be with you. My name is Josh Bissell. This here is Ashley. And we are so grateful to lead you in worship today. Scripture says to enter his presence with thanksgiving, to sing joyfully to the Lord. So would you guys just join us as we lift a praise to God today?
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. The Lord has promised good to me. His word, my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. Thank you, Jesus. The earth shall soon dissolve like snow. The sun forbear to shine, but God, who called me here below, will be forever mine. Will be forever mine. You are forever mine.
Here in person today or tuning in online, we're so glad you're here. At Riverbend, we aspire to be a welcoming community in service to others compelled by God's grace, and our community needs you. You can scan the QR code on the screen to connect with us and get involved. If you haven't yet, visit The Landing. It's our welcoming space where you can connect, meet staff and pastors, and take your next right step in faith. You'll find it on the east side of the main auditorium. God is doing incredible things through Riverbend. Lives are being changed and our city is being served in beautiful ways. To be a part of that, consider becoming a recurring giver by visiting riverbend.com/give or scanning the QR code on the screen. Thanks for being a part of our Riverbend family. We're so glad you're here.
Good morning, Riverbend. Happy Sunday. We're so glad you're here. My name is Jody Evans, and I'm the Director of Groups, First Impressions, and Volunteers here at Riverbend.
And I'm Bailey Bryan. I also serve on this team as the Operations Coordinator. Our team has the privilege of being involved in so many things here on campus, but our main focus is always to create a welcoming environment for everyone who walks through those doors.
We've been putting a lot of intentional focus behind the scenes on living out our Riverbend vision to be a welcoming community in service to others. And that really starts with all of us.
One of the exciting things going on today is we are launching our spring groups. Groups are where life and family really intersect, and where this big church feels a little bit more like home.
And truly there's something for everyone. Whether you're looking for a Bible study, a shared interest group, or just a place to meet people and grow, we have a wide variety of options.
You can scan the QR codes on the screens to check out all of our spring groups, or head to riverbend.com/groups. Anytime this week to browse and sign up. There's also flyers with all group opportunities at each entrance and the landing.
Another fun aspect of our job is we get to oversee the on-campus volunteers. And there's so many ways to serve here at Riverbend. Whether you can give just 30 minutes or even an hour, it makes an impact. You could greet, make coffee, help with production, help in the children's ministry, or even in the office. There's truly a place for everyone.
If you've been feeling led to make an impact around campus, you can scan the QR code on the screen to go directly to our serve page. Head to riverbend.com/serve and click on campus serving opportunities.
And with Easter just around the corner, it's just 2 weeks away, we have especially meaningful opportunities to jump in right now. We're expecting nearly 4,000 people on campus over Easter weekend, which is incredible, and also a chance for us as a church family to show up in a big way.
We want every single person who walks through these doors to feel loved, seen, and genuinely excited to come back and be part of this community. And we need you to help make that happen. So if you're interested, you can scan the QR code on the screen to head straight to our Easter page and learn more about serving opportunities for that weekend.
We're so glad you're here today. Let's continue to worship with Josh and Ashley.
Would you guys stand with us? Man, so grateful for the many ways that this church has to get connected with others. And man, I've been writing songs for many years. It's a way for me to kind of process my faith, for me to just process what God is doing in my life. And one of my favorite scriptures is Psalm 139. I love the way David worships the Lord for how he has made him, how he knows him, how he's known him since before he was born. And it's a way for us to worship as well in that same way, to thank God for his deep love for us. And so I'd love to share a song with you guys that's inspired by Psalm 139. It talks about the lengths that God has gone to prove his love for us. So we'd love to share this with you.
About me. You know my words before I say a thing. You are the reason that my heart is beating. How far could I go where you won't find me? There is no height, no depth to keep me from your love. Nothing in life or death won't find me. There is no height nor depth to keep me from your love. Nothing in life or death could keep me from your love. No, there is no height nor depth to keep me from your love. Nothing in life or death could keep me from your love. No, nothing can separate. Nothing can separate. So I praise you, Lord. Oh, I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I praise you, 'cause you know me and you call me by name. I praise you for your mercy and your kindness to save. I praise you for there's nothing that can separate. Oh, how far could I go where you won't find me?
I am sorry. I ask you to please forgive me. Now you may be wondering, appropriately so, why are you sorry, Dave? And what exactly are you asking me to forgive you for? That's a reasonable response. In fact, it should be our first response. It's an important response to when someone asks for forgiveness or someone apologizes and says they're sorry. You should be clear on what it is they are sorry about and what they're asking you to forgive. And that's a reasonable question to ask. Why? What? And it's an important question to ask. But it's not the most important question. The most important question is, what does it mean to forgive? Do we even know? Do we even know what you are asking, what you are saying? What does it mean to forgive? And there's no simple answer to this. This is complicated. In fact, poets and philosophers and theologians for hundreds, if not thousands of years have tried to define what it means to forgive and what it means to be forgiven. William Shakespeare put it this way. Shakespeare said, "Sweet forgiveness is nobility's true badge. Elegant, but not helpful. Mark Twain said it this way. I like this. He says, forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that crushed it. That's good. That's good. Author Bernard Metzler said it this way. When you forgive, you in no way change the past, but you sure do change the future. Okay, that's helpful. And Louis B. Smedes, the philosopher, said, to forgive is to set a prisoner free and to discover that the prisoner was you. But what does forgiveness mean? What is the definition of forgiveness? Does forgiveness mean that the past is obliterated? Does forgiving mean forgetting? Does it mean when I forgive someone that the consequences of their actions have no longer an impact on my life? Does it heal the wounds? Does it repay the debts? Does it give me a sense of closure and peace? What does it mean to forgive, and what does it mean to be forgiven? Does that mean I'm free? It's a get out of jail free card, ollie ollie oxen free. I have no more debts. I have no more obligation. I move on as if it has never happened. What does it mean to forgive? And what does it mean to be forgiven? This is important. This is important because it is the bedrock of this whole thing. It is the foundation. It is the cornerstone of what it means to follow Christ. What it means to be a Christian is to understand the gift, the grace, the mercy of God's forgiveness. We stake our lives on it. We stake eternity on it. This is a big deal. And yet, it's really hard for us to get our heads around. We need to get a handle on it because it's that important, but it's also that complex. It's multi-layered, it's multi-dimensional, it's like a diamond that's multifaceted. It depends on how you look at it. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on whether I'm being forgiven or the one doing the forgiving. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on the context. It depends on the consequences. What I want to do over the next few weeks is I want to try and define for us the beauty, the art, the significance. I want to define forgiveness. I want us to come away with a better understanding of what it means to forgive and what it means to be forgiven. And I want to look at 4 stories from the life of Jesus that give us an insight into the character of true forgiveness. And in the coming weeks, I want to suggest that forgiveness is courageous. It requires strength. It requires heroism. It requires bravery. It is heroic. Forgiveness is courageous. And then I want to suggest that forgiveness is generous. That forgiveness requires generosity and grace and a sense of gratitude. That we are generous when we give forgiveness. And then I want to suggest that a characteristic of forgiveness is hopefulness. That forgiveness is hopeful. It is life-giving. Forgiveness is a fresh start. It is a new beginning. It is resurrection. And then I want to suggest that forgiveness is confidence. That being forgiven requires confidence, and receiving forgiveness gives us confidence. And I want to look at 4 stories from the life of Jesus, and I want to begin with the first one today. And the first story we're going to look at today is a story that many good theologians, many brilliant theologians believe does not belong in our Bible. That it is not original, that it may, in fact, have never actually happened. We're going to talk about the courage it takes to deal with that because of the courage it takes to deal with forgiveness. But before we talk about that, would you pray with me? Father in heaven, I would ask that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart would be pleasing in your sight, that you would use your word, spoken by your servant, anointed by your Spirit, to challenge us to be courageous enough to be forgiving and to be brave enough to live forgiven. Pray that for myself and for my family and for all of us here. For I ask that in Jesus' name, amen. When I ask you to define a hero, what comes to mind? I think for most of us, the familiar paradigm of what a hero looks like is a hero is the person who runs toward danger when everyone else is running from it. That's a good image of hero, a first responder, a police officer, a firefighter, a soldier, a paramedic. Someone who sacrifices their own safety in order to rescue someone else. We classify that as brave, as heroic, a lifeguard, a person who puts themselves in harm's way to protect, to provide for, to rescue someone else. That's sort of the standard image of a hero. But I want to suggest that a hero is also seen over time. A hero is also that classroom teacher who goes to her class or their class every day and pours their life into their students and tries to manage them and teach them and instruct them and give them knowledge and make them better and sort of pseudo-parent them and all of the challenges of that classroom. And they do that day after day, week after week, semester after semester, only to send those children out and to receive another group of cannibals and start over again with them. And year after year, they faithfully pour their lives into that classroom full of students. That, I would suggest to you, is heroic. The single parent who works a couple of jobs, who's trying to raise on their own, in isolation, small children, who's wrangling what was meant to be done by a family and a partner, and they have to do that on their own, and they're isolated and threadbare and weary, and they do it faithfully and regularly and lovingly day after day, year after year. That takes courage. The parents who have a special needs child who adjust all of their goals, all of their expectations to caring for that child, and they do so eagerly, passionately. It's the son or the daughter, the spouse who cares for the debilitated and dying loved one, the partner or the parent. And they come alongside them in the final chapter of their lives and they give themselves to them. That takes strength. That takes courage. That's heroic. Just as much as the lifeguard or the first responder or the paramedic, this is what a hero looks like. Well, I want to suggest that the one who forgives and the one who accepts true forgiveness has courage, is heroic. That forgiveness is the prerogative and the purview and the priority of the brave. And the reason I say this is because of a story. And it's a story that appears at the beginning of the 8th chapter of the book of John. And it's a story that many good theologians believe does not belong in the Bible. Now, we're going to have to get academic here for a minute. We're going to talk about textual criticism. But you need to understand the courage it takes to deal with the Bible with integrity. And you see, the Bible is the most well-documented, well-sourced piece of ancient literature in human history by a factor of 100, if not 1,000. Are you familiar with Homer and the Homer story called the Iliad? Have you heard of that? Homer's Iliad? Before the printing press was invented in 1440 by Gutenberg, every printed piece of material had to be hand copied. And so ancient literature has a tendency to not hold up and to disappear. Homer's Iliad, one of the most famous ancient stories in the ancient world, there are about 14 to 1700 copies that predate 1400 AD. About 1,400 of them. The oldest of them is carbon dated 700 years after Homer lived. So there's a 7th-century gap between when we say Homer wrote them and the oldest copies we have of what is supposed to be his words. You're familiar with Plato? You know how many copies of Plato's writings exist in ancient literature prior to 1400 AD? 5. You heard of Aristotle? You know how many exist of Aristotle's writings? 7. And the oldest dating of Plato and Aristotle's writings is dated 14 centuries after they lived. The Bible has over 5,800 New Testament manuscripts. Some of the oldest are carbon dated to the first years of the 2nd century, within a generation of when Jesus lived and the authors of the New Testament wrote their books. 5,800 copies. Now, you have to understand that when the Apostle Paul wrote a letter, for example, to the church in Galatia, he wrote a letter and they got it, and it's undoubtedly that when they read that letter, they said, this is important. And it wasn't just one church in Galatia, it was house churches all through the southern and northern regions of Galatia. And so they probably, as soon as they got the letter, they set out to copying it. And they made copies to send to the other churches. And in that church, they probably said, there's other people that need to read this, so they made copies. And so they started replicating through hand copying the Bible, probably from the original manuscripts. We don't have the original autographs, so we don't know. We just know that very early on, within 100 years of their original authorship, hundreds of copies of the New Testament letters, of the 4 Gospels, of the book of Acts, of the book of Revelation existed throughout the Roman Empire. But in the copying of them, mistakes were made. One of the people copying him didn't have his coffee in the morning and he's writing and he confuses an O with an A, or he mistakes the end of the word and conjugates the noun wrong, or has the tense of the verb wrong. And it's possible that those mistakes were made, and then the next person that copied it repeated those mistakes. They're called textual variants. When I was in graduate school, I had a class in textual criticism, and my professor was a young professor who was just completing his PhD at Oxford, and he had spent the summer before my class in the catacombs under a monastery in Turkey, because he had been given access to some of the most ancient New Testament manuscripts in existence. And he spent 3 months, 12 and 14 hours a day, just comparing letter for letter, word for word, these different copies. His name is Dr. Dan Wallace. Now, 40 years later, he is probably the preeminent textual scholar in the world. And in Dan Wallace's estimation, I read this article a couple months ago, he said there are possibly 400,000 textual variants in the 5,800 copies that we have of the Greek New Testament, ancient copies. But he said, of those, 99.9% of them have no bearing on the theology, the historicity, or the authenticity of the doctrines and the teachings of the New Testament. They make no difference. And only 10% of those textual variants involve more than one word or a few letters. But of all of those 400,000 textual variants, there are only 2 that involve multiple verses. One are the 11 verses at the end of the Gospel of Mark, in Mark chapter 16, And the other are the first 11 verses of John chapter 8. The story that is called the pericope adulteri, the story of the woman caught in adultery. The story actually begins in verse 2, in John chapter 8, verse 2. The story is told that Jesus at dawn was teaching in the temple courts. Now, this wasn't unusual. By this time in Jesus' ministry, he had probably taught in Jerusalem and in the temple in Jerusalem dozens, if not hundreds of times. And so he probably drew a crowd, probably bigger than this one. I know I'd want to hear the guy. You realize there was no social media back then? There was no way to get information. You had to go to the place where the person was. I realize this is a radical concept in our day, but you had to actually physically go there to hear them. There were no recordings. And so when you had this young rebel rabbi who was sort of reorienting the history of Judaism and reorienting the law, this is something you wanted to hear. And the crowd was probably large. And it says that Jesus was teaching them in the temple courts when a group of religious leaders and Pharisees pushed their way through the crowd. And they came to where Jesus was, there at the epicenter of this gathering, and they stood a woman in front of him. And they said, "This woman has been caught in the act of adultery." And the law of Moses, the Torah says, she needs to die. What do you say there, young Nazarene rabbi? What do you say about this? Now, they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. They were right. They were right on the money. They were quoting chapter and verse. It's right there in black and white. The Ten Commandments. You know the Ten Commandments? The thing that Charlton Heston was holding at the top of the mountain, you know, in the movie, the Ten Commandments? The Ten Commandments, if you go to Exodus chapter 20, they're sandwiched in between, you shall honor your mother and your father, and you shall not commit murder, and you shall not steal, and you shall not bear false witness. Sandwiched in between them is, you shall not commit adultery. It is a capital crime, equal to murder, equal to stealing. It is a serious offense. In fact, in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10, it says that if any man is caught committing adultery with another man's wife, they both shall be put to death. That was the letter of the law, and they knew it. And they stood this woman in front of Jesus and they said, "You know what the law says. Now what are you going to do?" But Jesus didn't take the bait. He didn't fall for it. You see, he knew it was a trap. It was a trap. How do we know that it was a trap? We know that it was a trap because how do you catch someone in the act of adultery? How does that happen exactly? Well, you're walking down the street and you hear the sounds of something nefarious. You're like, "Oh, I wonder what's going on in there. Let's go see." And you burst in, aha, adultery is taking place. What a coincidence that we were on our way to the temple and we caught this couple in the act of infidelity. Ooh, how likely is that? Not at all. Oh, I like to imagine the scenario where they're coming up with this plot. And these religious leaders are pious, and they're sitting around, they say, "We have to trap this young rabbi. What do we do? Let's find someone who's committing adultery, and we have proof. And we'll bring him, and we'll ask him what he's going to do with her. Do we have any volunteers?" And I can see them all sheepishly going, "Oh, I'll take one for the team. Okay, if you really need somebody." It was a trap. They had it set up. We know it was set up. It was set up because you don't catch them. You know why? How else we know it was a trap? Is because where was the man? I don't know if you're familiar with how adultery works. I realize there are some of you who understand Matthew chapter 5, and Jesus said, "Any man who looks at a woman lustfully in his heart has committed adultery in his heart." And that's a solo case. It's different than the standard form of adultery. It takes two people. And the man wasn't there. They just brought the woman. So what does that tell you? That tells you he was just too fast. He ran out of the room. We couldn't catch him. Slippery booger. I mean, how do you miss him? He's right there. But they had her. They didn't have the man. You know how we know it was a trap? Because in John 8, he says it was a trap. And it was a trap so that they could discredit him, so that they would have a basis of accusing him. And it was perfect. It was perfect. It was the perfect trap, because if he said, kill her, because he knows the law, then they would go, what about all this stuff you've been talking about, the higher law, the law of love? You've been talking about forgiveness. What about that there, Rabbi? You're a hypocrite. And if he says, let her go, then since when do we get to pick and choose which rules to follow, which commandments to obey? Who gave you that right? Who do you think you are? You're a heretic. It was the perfect trap. But Jesus doesn't take the bait. He doesn't fall for it. It says that he knelt down and he began writing in the dirt. And we don't know what he wrote. The winds of time have blown it away. We just know that as he was writing, they were still saying, come on, tell us. You can't cop out. You can't get out of this. And as he's writing on the ground, they're continuing to yell at him. And they kept on questioning him. And finally, he's like, okay, it's time. And he stands up. He says, okay, let the one of you who has no sin cast the first stone. See, Jesus knew the custom. The custom in Jerusalem, the custom in Judea back in the first century was that if you made an accusation of a capital crime against another person, and that person was convicted on your testimony, you had to throw the first stone. See, it was a way that they constructed the social contract to say, if you're going to accuse somebody, you better be willing to follow it through. Because you're going to have to look them in the eye and bash them in the head with a rock. So before you accuse them, you better be saying what you know is true. And so the custom was that the person who cast the first stone was the person who was making the critical accusation. And he says that to him, and then he goes back and he starts to write in the dirt again. Kind of wish I knew what he wrote, don't you? I mean, if I had been in the crowd, I would have been, what's he doing? What's he doing? What's he doing? But you know what I think he wrote? He wrote the name of their mistresses. Or he wrote the number of the amount of money they had in their secret bank accounts. Or maybe all he did was write their names. If there were a dozen or 2 dozen of them that he had never met or seen before, he wrote their full names in the dirt. How did he do that? And as he's writing, the story tells us that they started to leave. They started to slink away through the crowd. And it says that the older ones left first. That's important to notice. It's important to notice that it was the older ones. And I think it's important because when I was 20 years old, I knew everything. When I was 30, in my 30s, I realized I got some stuff I got to learn. When I got into my 50s, it was like, well, man, I'm not sure I know anything. And now that I'm approaching my 70s, I'm convinced I'm not even smart enough to be considered an idiot. I don't even know what I don't know. And I think the expectation of wisdom that comes with age is we realize how little we know and how much we need. That we can't do this on our own. This is not something we do by ourselves. We can't figure out life alone. We need help. And that's supposed to come with age. And as they dissipated through the crowd and disappeared, Jesus finally stood up when they were gone. And I have to ask myself, why did they hate him so much? Why? Why is it so hard for us to receive his forgiveness? Why is that? I think it's because we're not self-aware. We think we're capable. We think we're competent. We think we are self-sufficient. And to a large degree we are. But in that lack of self-awareness, there's a trigger that says, if you call me out on it, I don't like you. I don't like you pointing out my need. I don't like you offering to rescue me because I'm strong enough. And I think that worked its way through that group. And they all left, and the crowd was left, and Jesus was there alone with the woman. I don't know about you, but I would have stayed. If I was in that crowd, I'd want to be there. I'd be like, what is going to happen now? Is he going to bash her head into a rock? What's going to go down? Because I like to imagine that she stood there, wrapped in just a bedsheet, naked underneath, with her hair draped over her head, matted and disheveled. Her face was flushed and stained with tears. And it's not hard to imagine that she was trembling uncontrollably because she was facing death. She was caught and she knew it. And she knew the possibility existed that this could be her last moments on earth, and she was terrified. I like to imagine Jesus in sort of this anthropomorphized way, looking at her and lifting her chin and forcing her eyes to look at his. And he says, where are they? Is there no one here to condemn you? And she glances around and says, no one, sir. And then Jesus says, neither do I condemn you. There's two hard lessons here. Two hard lessons that remind us that the art of forgiveness is heroic, that it requires courage to be forgiving and to be forgiven. And the first lesson is in the words that Jesus says. He says, neither do I condemn you. It's what he doesn't say there. He doesn't say the law does not condemn you any longer because she was still guilty. She was an adulteress. The crime had been committed. The reality of that kangaroo court was she had been found guilty, and that was not changed. But what Jesus says is, I will not be your executioner. And you see, what takes courage to do in forgiveness is to let go. To let go of the bitterness, to let go of the disappointment, to let go of the wounds and the betrayal and all of the loss that you suffer that engenders in us this pain and this anger, and to let it go and say, as far as I am concerned, we're done. It's not on me to execute the law. It is not on me to judge you. I forgive you. You are still guilty before the law. There are still consequences for your behavior, but it will not be at my hand. Do you understand the courage that takes? You understand how heroic it is to look at someone who has betrayed you, who has wounded you, who has taken from you something precious, and say, I let it go. I no longer condemn you. That's courage. That's strength. I promise you, I don't know that I would have it if someone harmed one of my daughters or my granddaughters. I'm sorry, I want to see you punished. That forgiveness requires a strength that I'm not sure I have. But that's what it is. It's heroic, it's courageous, it's brave. That's the first hard lesson of the courage that it takes, the art of forgiveness takes. The second hard lesson is in the last phrase of this controversial section in John chapter 8. Jesus says to the woman, now go and leave your life of sin. What he's saying there is, I want you to live forgiven, which means you stop doing the stuff that you just got caught doing, which means you change. You're given a second chance. Don't blow it. You have been resurrected. Live like it. You are set free. Do not put yourself back in bondage over the things that you cannot let go of. I forgive you. You are forgiven. You are resurrected. You are made anew. You are given a second chance. You are born again. Act like it. If you don't think that takes strength, if you don't think that takes courage, if you don't think that's heroic, you have not tried to live as a forgiven individual in a culture of relentless accusation and temptation. It's hard. But that's why forgiveness requires courage. We see the courage in that story of Jesus confronting the religious leaders, but really that was every day for him. The real courage was in the forgiving, and the real challenge was for that woman to be courageous from that day forward. I can't tell you why John 8, 1-11 is non-existent for the better part of 400 years in the early manuscripts, the copies of the New Testament. The oldest dated copies that we have of parchments of sections of the Gospel of John, some of which date into the mid-2nd century. John 8 isn't there. It was 325 AD in Nicaea. It's called the Council of Nicaea. It was the first ecumenical council. It was the first time in the history of the church, after 300 years, that they brought together leaders from all across the Roman Empire. And they got together to determine who Jesus was doctrinally. What was salvation about? It was clarifying the doctrines of the church. What do we all agree on? But what was in the New Testament, they never brought it up. It was 50 years later, a man named Bishop Athanasius of Alexandria, in 357 AD, he said there are 27 books that appear to be supernaturally inspired, and these make up the New Testament. And it was from then on that the copies of the New Testament included the 27 books. The oldest we have are two Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus, which are dated from sometime just before the beginning of the 5th century. And they contain the 27 books, and they do not contain the end of Mark chapter 16 or the first 11 verses of John chapter 8. But every copy after that, and all of the 10,000 Latin translations contain John 8, 1-11. I asked Prof. Dan Wallace when he was my teacher, I said, what do we do with John chapter 8? He said, it's 50-50. He said, Mark 16, I'm not sure about. That one, the evidence is sketchier, but there's an abundance of evidence that says something happened. One day, one of the scribes had a fight with his wife, and he came in and he flipped the page too soon and missed the story. And every copy after that was missing it. We don't know what happened to it, but we do know that the content of it, the message of it, that feels authentic, doesn't it? That feels genuine. that's seen as something that we can picture Jesus doing. Scientifically, academically, it's a coin flip. But I would suggest for your consideration today that it exists now for us to pay attention to. To try and understand what forgiveness is about. Because we have to get a handle on it. We really do. We have to understand what forgiveness is. Because it's the bedrock of our faith. It is the cornerstone of what it means to follow Jesus. It is all of those things. And the reality is that the notion of understanding forgiveness is complicated and it's complex and it's been hard to define. I mean, poets, philosophers, and theologians have tried, and some of them have tried fairly humorously. For example, and this is a good quote. This is from Gandhi. He said, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Forgiveness is a virtue of the brave." Yeah, I think so. The author William Arthur Ward said, "Forgiveness is a funny thing. It warms the heart and cools the sting." Oscar Wilde, who was famously a humorist, wrote, "Always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much." And it was John F. Kennedy who said, "Forgive your enemies, but never forget their names." See, forgiveness is hard, it's complicated, it's difficult. And I think what I want to do in the coming weeks is I want to examine the characteristics of it. The first of which is that it's courageous. The second of which is that it's generous, gracious, and grateful. The third is it's life-giving. It's fresh starts and new beginnings. It's resurrection. And the fourth one is that it's confident. It gives us confidence in the face of fear, in the face of doubt. It makes us bold. But it's hard to define. And you may be thinking right now, "Come on, Dave. You said you were going to define forgiveness for us. You said that's the most important thing." I was listening before I fell asleep halfway through your message when you were talking about the textual variants and you lost me. But before you lost me, you were saying it's the most important question. What does forgiveness mean? You didn't tell us what forgiveness means. Well, to that I say, please forgive me. I am sorry.
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name, and I've been born again into your family. a child of God. I am surrounded by the arms of the Father. I am surrounded by songs of deliverance. We've been liberated from our bondage. We're songs in the darkness. Let us sing our freedom. Sing, oh, full of faith we sing, I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. You guys go with the Lord this week and be blessed. We'll see you.
you and I collide. Darling,
coming up short is a sure thing. It makes me wanna run.